Good morning, my federal phoenixes. Let's talk allocution today. For those of you who don't know, during your federal sentencing hearing, after all the formalities, which is mostly the judge just reading some things and you answering some very simple yes or no questions, the prosecutor will then, generally kind of say the worst he can about you and express a hope that you get the harshest sentence possible. And then countering that, your lawyer will then be allowed to speak, where he will say the best things about you and ask for the most lenient sentence possible. And then when those two things are done, right before you're actually sentenced by your judge, the judge will then turn to you and say, is there anything you would like to say before you're sentenced or at this time? This is what you're about to say after the judge asks you that question is called allocution. The biggest mistake people make with allocution in the federal legal system is they think allocution is their opportunity to either A, beg for mercy, or B, justify why they should get a lenient sentence. Doing either of these things is going to not help you. It's actually going to be to your detriment. Think of it as allocution is apology. You know what I mean? Your chance to give allocution is your chance to give an apology, pretty much, to the judge. But it also can be directed to other people through the judge, my family, my community, Your Honor, I apologize to whatever. If you try to use this opportunity to beg for mercy, you're really just going to look kind of goofy. And the judge is going to look at this as though you have not really seen any fault in the commission of your crimes, because you feel that you're entitled to some kind of leniency. If you think it's a chance for you to negotiate for leniency, I'm a great person. I've been doing charity work. I don't deserve, this or that. By you doing that, by you kind of showing, trying to show the good or the pros of you or your circumstance, your growth since your crimes, and at this particular time, really just, again, tells the judge that you have not taken responsibility. You really want to, as they say, fall on your sword when you give allocution. Now, you do not want to be overly dramatic to the point that you appear insincere. You don't want to go up there and, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry to my pastor, my friends, my family, my community. I apologize, Your Honor. I'm a bad guy. You don't want to do that either. That's going to come off as very insincere, and it is not going to work to your benefit either. I've already prepared my allocution. I'm not going to share it with you verbatim, but I will give you an overview. First off, any federal judge will tell you, and any good federal lawyer will tell you, that in the eyes of the courts, every crime has a victim. Every crime. So even if your crime, like mine, is generally categorized as victimless by society, maybe by probation, you have to figure out who the heck is the victim and apologize to them in court. Even better if before you get to allocution, if you figure out who is the victim and you try to make some kind of what they call restorative justice, some kind of amends to this person or group or entity. For me personally, my crime was a nonviolent drug crime. I think anybody, and everybody is going to say, I apologize to my loved ones and my friends and family, for what they've been through as a result of my criminal conduct, But now you need to reach outside of that. That's very generic. That's a great opener, because it's probably the same thing literally 90% of people say. But so in my case, I said, I will be saying, I haven't given allocution yet, will be soon, that, that I understand that me playing, even though I didn't personally introduce drugs into my community, me playing a role in a situation that did introduce drugs into my community was harmful. And I understand that anyone who plays any role in introducing drugs into a community, their victims are quite often the more vulnerable members of society who are victimized by the drug influx. That when drugs come in the community, the crime rate goes up. Because the drug addicts need money to buy their drugs. And so, there are a lot more break-ins, there are a lot more robberies, there are more assaults. The influx of drugs into the community creates a higher potential for crimes. And, sadly, quite often, the targets of crimes in places where I live, small town America, are often those who are perceived as having an inability to prevent themselves from becoming victims. The elderly, the mentally ill, the handicapped. And it's really tragic. Of course I didn't say it was tragic because you don't want to make yourself out to be too much of a villain. I mean, let's not go to extremes here. But I said, I apologize to my community. I understand that being part of a process that is putting drugs in the community makes me a part of the drug problem, makes me a part of the tying up of emergency resources to deal with overdoses, the tying up of emergency resources to deal with crimes that are subsequent to the drug epidemic. And, I said, not only do I apologize to my community, I now see who my victims are, and I'm truly, apologetic. It's never been my intent to harm anyone throughout this process. But in addition to that, I've also joined an organization which helps my community, helps rebuild my community or keep my community afloat via charitable donation and different things. And, because I realize that I have, in some way, no matter how small or indirect, contributed to the situation, the danger, the threat, the crime rate of my community. And I want to try to mitigate that by contributing good to kind of balance out the bad that I've previously done. And so I'm trying to mitigate that by volunteering and by being part of an organization whose focal point is to strengthen the community. So if you haven't done anything like that, you definitely should. It's called restorative justice. It's what they call it in the law. And you definitely want to identify who are my victims. Perhaps you have a financial crime. Even if you were just skimming money off from millionaires, which, most people, myself included in normal circumstances, would say is victimless. However, you would be a person who says, I realize that although at the time I committed my crimes, I didn't think of my crime as a crime with a victim per se, that I was simply taking something that would not be missed by those who did not need it. However, after much introspect or in retrospect, I've realized that, what is not mine is simply not mine. And I can work for something, I can purchase something, but for me to take what is not mine, what belongs to another person, is morally wrong. And so these wealthy people who I made, $100,000 off of are my victims. And I apologize. And if you have a financial crime, what you need to do to try to do restorative justice with that is to try to repair the financial damage. Or at least try to come up with a game plan for how you will repair it. Because the reality is federal court is going to make you pay restitution, whether you volunteer or not. So if you're going to have to do this anyway, if you have a financial crime and you're going to pay financial restitution, I know another YouTuber right now, really nice guy, very humble guy. He's in a federal halfway house. And he was doing some kind, I think, tax thing or whatever. But anywho, he has to pay back like $4 million. And this is someone who's working minimum wage jobs and is, I think he's in like his 40s or 50s. Like, he's not a young person. He's not a highly educated person. He's not a person with incredible resources. He's a regular person that's probably going to be paying off this debt for the rest of his life, if he even gets it paid off in this lifetime. So knowing that they're going to expect you to do that, to do financial, to repay things, you might as well just volunteer to do it. You might as well say, this is what I can do, so this is what I've done, and I intend to make this right, to make these people whole for whatever damage I have caused them. So think of your allocution as an opportunity for you to, because see, your lawyer's sentencing memorandum should have portrayed you in a very positive light, should have given all the reasons why you should get the lightest sentence possible, and your circumstances in a sympathetic or compelling way. Your PSR, assuming you're making any good life choices at all, and even if you weren't, maybe it'll reflect that you had a difficult childhood, which I think is pretty universal for most people, it seems. Or maybe it'll reflect, other things that are positive about you. So, those were the two. And if you want to write a personal narrative before sentencing, submit that at least a month before your sentencing hearing. Your personal narrative, in layman's, your letter to the judge, is your opportunity to really kind of say, I don't think the PSR really accurately portrayed me or my history or my character. So this is my version of who I am before and beyond my criminal activity, or the circumstances of my criminal activity. You want to get all that out of the way into the judge before allocution, because allocution is going to be a whole lot of, I'm sorry. First thing you need to do in allocution is, say thank you, Your Honor, for allowing me to speak, or thank you for your time. I just want to take this opportunity to apologize to, and then you need to list the people you're apologizing to. My friends and family for the incredible hardship and embarrassment and disappointment that they've been through because of this. My community, who has been harmed, inadvertently or indirectly, or, unintentionally, but I realize has been harmed in this way. My employer, my business associates, whatever your circumstances. And for every person, every group, or every entity you apologize to the judge, you also want to take a moment and kind of explain why this group or this person or this entity is owed an apology from you. And if applicable, you also want to put at the end of that, and this is what I've done to try to remedy the harm that I've caused, to try to mitigate it. Or this is what I intend to do to mitigate the damage that I've done. And then once you get through all of your apologizing, because that's going to be the majority of your allocution, really at that point, you just want to thank the judge and the courts for their time. You may want to apologize for the fact that they've had to take time and resources to deal with you because you chose to make bad decisions. And again, even if you're completely innocent, you're probably going to take a plea deal. I mean, that's what you have to do in federal court. You take a plea deal, because if you don't and you get a charge drop, they come back with a meaner, nastier charge with more time. So you just take the frickin' plea deal. So even if you did nothing, you've taken a plea deal now, you've said you did something. Just really focus your outlook to, okay, yep, I said I did it. I did it. Now I'm going to conduct myself as though I'm a person who has done whatever and is trying to make the situation right. I mean, don't stick your head up your butt and think, oh, I didn't really do this. Or, oh, the terms of my plea deal really exaggerated what I did or my involvement. Therefore, there's really no need for me to apologize for things I didn't do. You need to be apologetic during allocution for everything that your plea deal says you did. Period. Your indictment or your information packet. If you took a plea deal, that you're basically validating that whatever's in there is correct. So you need to be, as sincerely apologetic as possible, as though you did those things, even if you didn't, or as though you did them to those extremes, even if you didn't. It's crazy. It's really mind-blowing and crazy, but it is what it is. And of course, when you go to your sentencing hearing, you give allocution. You don't want to fidget with your hands. If you feel the need to fidget, wiggle your toes in your shoes. Something that people aren't going to notice or see. Do not rock back and forth. Do not bounce your leg. Do not fidget your hands. Try to make as much eye contact with the judge as possible. I have other videos on what you should wear, but your body language is going to be very important. Have good posture. You need to speak out. There'll be microphones, but you need to project what you're saying without seeming like a person who's yelling. You want to speak like this, where you're very clear, but you're also not, yelling or being condescending. You put a little bass in that voice. So, anywho, those are my tips for giving allocution. Definitely, before you go, you want to take footnotes or maybe write an outline and practice it several times. You really want to get to the point where when you walk into that courtroom, you pretty much have your allocution statement memorized. But you have like little note cards in case you get lost or you fumble. And you want to try to keep your allocution to a 10-15 minute maximum, because you don't want to bore the judge. As crazy as that may sound, because this is your life, how can anyone become bored, with determining your future? But this is the reality. You need to keep it to about 10-15 minutes max. Very direct and to the point. Again, this is not a time to justify yourself. This is not a time to excuse yourself. This is not a time to explain why you're worthy of mercy. That should have happened in your lawyer's sentencing memorandum, possibly parts of your PSR, and certainly in your personal narrative if you wrote one to the judge. But that ship has sailed. So don't try to misuse this opportunity to try to do something other than what you're intended to be doing. Allocution is apologizing. Because you're really just going to waste this opportunity and probably create, at least in the judge's mind, an image that you are not a person who's taking accountability, or you're a woe is me, I'm a victim kind of person, which you can't really play that card when you're in a federal courtroom after saying or being found guilty of some type of criminal activity. You're not the victim. You have victims, but you're not the victim. And you need to fully accept and acknowledge that. So I hope this video has been helpful to someone. If you like the video, feel free to subscribe, hit the little bell if you'd like notifications. As you all know, I get sentenced in a couple months. I'm hoping I'll be a self-surrender, so I figure in a few months is when I'll actually be starting my federal prison sentence. If you hit the notification button, then when I come home, because I can't make videos while I'm incarcerated, but when I come home with a whole new gauntlet of experiences and perspectives and things, you'll be able to see that evolution, and you'll be able to also get that new information. So, I hope you enjoyed the video, and good day. God bless.